Thank you so much, Patrick. Good afternoon, everybody. Our keynote speaker today is Christie Gotti. She is a senior program manager with NCTCOG. Christie joined NCTCOG as a transportation planner in October 2000. She's currently the senior program manager for transportation project programming. Christie received her bachelor's degree in geography from the University of Texas at Austin and her master's degree in public administration from the University of Texas at Arlington. Christie manages the Transportation Improvement Program and project funding for the Dallas-Fort Worth region. In this capacity, she works with NCTCOG staff, local governments, the Texas Department of Transportation, and other transportation agencies to select, fund, and implement transportation projects in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. She's a member of the Women's Transportation Seminar and has volunteered or served in a leadership capacity for WTS locally since 2005. Outside of work, her interests include traveling, scrapbooking, reading, and visiting friends and family. She's married with 2 children. Let's give Christie a warm welcome.
I don't think this dais is built for people my height. Hopefully y'all can see me. Can y'all hear me okay? All right, great. Well, we'll go ahead and get started if you'll go to the next slide. All right, so just to give you a feel for what is our region, how do we compare to the rest of the country and in some cases the world? I always like to start with this because it's a little mind-blowing to me, some of the growth and just the norm that we live through that other people do not experience. So first, we are the 4th largest metropolitan area by population, and we are larger than 35 states in population. In terms of land area, our region, which you can see the call out box there next to Texas, that's the size of our region, is the entire state of Maryland can fit inside our region. So if you think about that, we are doing regional planning that is really at a statewide level in most states in or a lot of states in our country. We are larger than 5 states in land area as well. So one of the other interesting things is we are ranked 12th globally in metropolitan GDP. So that's a international number, not just within the nation or the state. So we have a lot going on in Texas and a lot of work that we are all doing. That's why we are all here. Sorry, if you can go to the next slide. So a little bit about transportation funding at a very high level. There are different sources, the largest of which are system revenue. So this is when you pay taxes at the gas pump, registration fees, things like that. We have facility revenue, which we in this region are blessed to have available to us that comes from toll roads and managed lanes and other public-private partnerships. And then there's the local revenue from local governments, so their property taxes, sales taxes, things like that. They all come together to build a total funding availability for transportation. Our region's current transportation plan that goes out through 2050 has a total $217 billion in anticipated investments over that time horizon. You'll go to the next slide. They mentioned that I manage the Transportation Improvement Program. So this is really like a capital improvement program for the region. It gets submitted to the state. While this is a funding document, it's really a process as well. So we work with some of the people in this room. So cities, counties, TxDOT, we have 3 districts in our region, the transit agencies, other transportation agencies such as NTTA, DFW Airport. We coordinate with all of them to put together the plan and then in my case to fund projects. If you could go to the next slide. So what is the size of that? If you look at all active projects, so these are projects that are either under construction right now, that are ready to go to construction in the next 4 years, or that we are planning for, the total funding for all of those is about $43 billion is the size of the portfolio that we manage. It has just under 1,300 active projects, and that number varies all the time as some projects come offline when they get completed, and then we fund new ones, they come online. We are coordinating with approximately 91 implementing agencies across the region. That's out of, I don't know if you realize this, but when you count the school districts that we coordinate with, it's over 240 implementing agencies in the region that are out there, but 91 of those are implementing active transportation projects. And then the current 4-year window that we will be focused on is less. It's at 7.4 billion right now, is what you'll see coming in over the next 4 years. And we do develop a new funding document every couple years. Since the last one was developed, we have let collectively 136 projects and 114 have been completed. So there's a lot of work going on. So how long does it take to complete a project? This is one of the other things that we work on is once we fund projects, we are really there to help agencies get their projects across the goal line. So we do a lot of work on monitoring how quickly those projects happen. And you can see this is the typical timeline in the sort of best case scenario. And I just want to highlight that is best case. If you add up all these months to do all of these things, it comes to 4.5 to 8 years minimum to get a federal project through the federal process. That's the minimum if everything goes well. I don't know if y'all are familiar with projects, but they usually don't. There's always something. So we'll talk more about that if you go to the next slide. So we have a lot of project implementation delays that we see. This has really been a major focus area for us. The state is really pushing us as the region to help people get their projects done. This is because we fund the projects. Unfortunately, we have zero authority to force people to get projects done faster. So it's this interesting conundrum that we find ourselves in. But they are really focused on this because it creates a lot of money that shows up as not being encumbered. So when people see unencumbered money, they think, oh, I can use that for my purpose. So our goal is to get not only to get it funded in the first place, but then to get it used as quickly as possible, because when they see those balances, they want to take them. So we've seen actually in our region, we've implemented a few things to help monitor projects and to really put the microscope on them. If you think about it, what is that which is monitored is really done better. So if you can see what's happening, you can go in and then target improvements to try to make it better. So our first attempt at this was what we call the 10-year milestone policy. And this is where at the time, we had projects that had been around longer than some of the people who worked for me had been alive. So that was sort of mind-blowing for a lot of us, and certainly for the people who had those projects on their books still. So every few years we go through, and any project that's been on the book for longer than 10 years, we have those agencies go through and reaffirm they're interested and that they want to continue moving forward on that project, and their policy board has to reapprove it. And we've done a few other things like that over the time. TxDOT in Austin has still felt like we're not quite where they would like us to be. So they changed the rules to make it very performance-based. So we actually lose money if we are not successful in keeping the carryover balances low. So it's very a targeted effort at our region to help that succeed. We can change, there we go. So what causes delays? The one that I'm most involved with is this first one. They're called, quote, STIP exceptions. This is really where we submit projects for approval to our federal partners and they don't approve them for some reason. We do a lot to make sure that doesn't happen. We know all their sort of red flag words that if you use that, they're not going to approve it. So we've kind of learned some things like that over the years. But once you become a STIP exception, you're probably 6 months away from approval. It just takes time to go back through that process. So we implement steps to stop that. Getting your agreements with the state can take anywhere from 12 to 24 months on the Dallas side of the region. We're finding it's a little bit less on the west lately. When I first started at COG, the quoted time frame then was 6 to 8 weeks to get an agreement, and it is now 12 to 24 months. So we've been really pushing that issue with the state that, great, we'd love to keep our balances low, but can you help us with this side of things? One of the big causes, I think, is local government changes in both priority and staff turnover. As one elected official rotates off and new ones come on, the project that was really important to the one may not be to the next, and so it gets kind of put on the back burner. The federal process itself, as you saw on the earlier slide, is very cumbersome. And then the two big that you probably know if you help implement projects are utility relocation delays, and railroad agreements are a really big one. Thank you. Some other things to note. How many people are from local agencies in the room? Anybody? One, two, a few. Nobody wants to raise their hand. So how about consulting firms? Is probably most people in the room. Yes. Okay. Any agencies like TxDOT or NTTA, anything? Okay. So this may or may not apply to most of you, but you can at least help your clients in understanding. One of the biggest things I would say is people come to us asking for money too late. We've had cities come in with their developer. They'll come in September and they're like, hey, we would like to get a project and we're ready to go to construction in December. And my answer to them is I cannot help you in any way, shape, or form. You saw the schedule that I showed at the beginning. That's under best case scenario. So the only way that ever works is if the local agency has already gone through all the pre-construction activities. So we're really encouraging people that you need to ask 3 to 4 years in advance at a minimum before you are ready to move forward on that project. Really, as you're starting to think of the idea, you should be talking to us. Project readiness, one of the big things I think is local agencies tend to want to tell their elected officials how quickly they can do things, not necessarily taking into account the cumbersomeness of the process. So they commit to a date that is really unachievable. So we've been working on educating folks and helping them to come up with a better schedule from the beginning. There's a lot of loss of institutional knowledge that we've seen over the last few years as people change cities or people move to the private sector or back and forth. You just lose knowledge in the process. And so it just sets back all the projects that are on their radar. And then one of the biggest things we see is we fund projects, and I'm pretty sure now, although I talk to the same people on both sides, but it seems like the people who ask for money are very different, which makes sense from the people who implement projects with that money. And so there seems to be a disconnect. So everybody's really excited, and I hear from people constantly until we fund their project. And then the second it's funded, they disappear, and we don't hear from them for 5 years. And so we are really pushing that. And we'll ask them, well, where are you at? Well, we haven't heard from TxDOT. No. TxDOT's not responsible for making sure your project gets implemented. You are. And so we're really trying to re-emphasize that you need to ask TxDOT to start your agreement process, and you have to ask them to do review of the design plans and so on and so forth. We'll go to the next slide. So we have instituted at the regional level certain programs and projects to try to target some of the items I mentioned that can slow projects down. So one of the projects that we funded is a program to expedite Section 404, 408 permits. Probably many of the people in this room are more knowledgeable about those than I am, so I may use the words wrong, but basically we hire a person that works just for our region and for the Corps of Engineers. We use some of our toll proceeds, so regional toll revenues, to pay for this. You cannot use federal funds for that. So we pay for this person, and anybody who is having an issue can sign up and say, hey, please look at my project. And we have somebody in our office that manages that and coordinates with the Corps of Engineer person. And so their goal is to look at it and see, hey, you actually don't need to apply for this one. You qualify under this one. You don't even have to do all that work, or they help walk you through the process. Other items, we funded a project that will help expedite Class 1 railroad review. So if railroads are one of the major obstacles to slowing down projects if you cross a rail line, then we have now funded a program where you can call our freight team and they have money that they can specifically move over to Union Pacific or BNSF or whomever it is to help expedite that design review. We've implemented other things. This is really on the local match side. We have what's the MTP is Metropolitan Transportation Plan for our region. So as part of that, if you implement certain policies and procedures within your city, you can qualify to receive these credits. The credits are really a way that the federal government says, hey, you guys have told yourselves and you're helping to pay for the transportation system, we're going to give you a credit back for that. And we can then use those credits to not have to pay a local match. So it's really an incentive program to help agencies get projects on the books. And then I mentioned the increased project tracking and monitoring that we are doing on my team and others to help get projects across the goal line. So we have considered that the monitoring only works so well. So we've used the incentive or the carrot so far. We're debating, do we use a stick next time? Where if you are not getting your projects across the goal line, maybe you quit getting money for new projects. So we have not implemented that because some of the biggest offenders are a lot of the cities that probably need the projects the most. So it's a conundrum in which we find ourselves. If you go to the next slide. So we have implemented some other things in our region to help because the federal process is what it is. We identified, this goes back to 2004, 2005. My director, which is Michael Morris, suggested this, and I thought there's no way anybody's going to do this, but they totally did. So what we said is, hey, at that time, a local agency had, in this case, 57 million. So this is Denton County, had $57 million that was pledged to the 35E project. That was local dollars. We said, hey, what if we offset your local and we put federal funds on there instead? So we took $57 million in federal funds, sent it to that project. They sent us the local funds, and it created a regional funding pool that we call RTC, which is our policy board, RTC local funds. And that was the first of many deals. It helps us at the regional level because it consolidates those federal funds on fewer, bigger projects and projects that already have to go through the federal system. So if you're on an interstate highway, you're going through the federal system. If you're a 100,000 bicycle pedestrian project, you go through the exact same process that the $1.4 billion project goes through, which doesn't really make sense logically. So the idea here is that we swapped out funds as best we could when it made sense. You have to have an excess of local money on a project that can take the federal funds, and you have to have a local agency who's willing to say, yes, once those monies come to the region, they are regional funds. They're no longer their local funds. So it's quite a process. Again, it started in 2005. That resulted in several individual deals that totaled about $91 million in funding. We've started to spin that down a couple of years ago. Michael and I started getting nervous that there wasn't very much left in that pool. And so we started looking for new opportunities. And since 2019, when we really re-engaged there, we've built a new pool that got up to 127 million. So we don't use that for big open calls. We are very selective because it's a very limited pool relative to the billions of dollars that you saw on the federal side. If you'll switch to the next, regional toll revenues, I mentioned, these are monies that have come off toll roads over the years. So the biggest one came off of the 121 project, now Sam Rayburn Toll Road, that NTTA implemented, covered Dallas, Denton, and Collin counties. That had an upfront and an excess revenue payment. The bottom line is about $3.1 billion came to our region that we could then use outside of the federal process to go implement projects. We've had a few other infusions over time, much smaller, so it's totaled about $4 billion, and then it accrues interest, so that is helpful. So we have been using those regional toll revenue funds and the RTC local funds to implement projects that really can't go through the federal process as well, or in order to help speed up projects that need to go sooner. You go to the next slide. So there are a few ways we are working on implementing more or really implementing programs that'll bring more of these toll revenues to our region. One of which was actually organized quite a few years ago when Bill Hale was the district engineer at TxDOT Dallas. We did a trade on Interstate 30 at George Bush Turnpike Eastern Extension, and it resulted in NTTA agreeing to provide 20% of all the gross toll receipts off of the Eastern Extension in perpetuity to the region as regional toll revenues. So far, as part of that deal, there was a loan agreement. So it was paying back $124 million. Back when we did that deal, 2025 sounded a long time away. It is now passed. That loan will actually be repaid in this month is what we're thinking. And so then it'll start accruing money to go out and do additional projects. We have a couple others of those. I don't know how much time I have to go through those, but another example is LBJ at 35E. If you are not aware, there's a public-private partnership that built LBJ between 35 and 75. Anytime you make improvements, an assessment of the improvement is done to see if it is income producing for the private sector firm. They can only get so much income and then they have to start splitting it with the region. So this resulted in an initial payment of just under 13 million, and we're getting between, it said we anticipated 2 to 4 million. We're starting to see it creep up and be closer to 3 million a year. And so we have other, if we can flip to the next slide, we have other examples that are similar to that. Here's one that Addison had committed 5 million to DART as part of their Cotton Belt corridor. But they were unwilling to pay the cost of that until the project was completed. For those of you who implement projects, you might know that it's very difficult to build a project without all the money in hand. But Addison's point was, we've been waiting on rail for a long time and we don't know that we trust that it's ever going to happen. So we don't want to give you the money until it's there. So we had this conundrum. And so DART and Addison approached us and said, hey, can you pay it up front? Addison will then pay the region back once that project is completed. So last October, when I went to the opening, we flagged internally, hey, we need to go work on getting our repayment done. So we are working through that now. Not sure if I have any other examples. There's a couple more here. The bottom line is we work on, a lot of times when people come to us with a problem, we often are able to solve their problem and then come up with a way to build up these reserves of non-federal funds to build other projects. So, excuse me, these are a few examples that I don't think I'll go through them in detail here, but with North Tarrant Express, basically that public-private partnership, the private sector can only make so much money before they have to start sharing it with the region. When that agreement was being done at the TxDOT level back in 0809, we thought we wouldn't see that money until 2030 or beyond. And we got our first payment of, it was only 730,000, but that was in 2021. And it's been going up dramatically since then. So we're really seeing these programs that we put in place build up reserves of non-federal funds to help us implement non-federal projects. Maybe if we can go to the next slide. We're getting towards the end. So the question is, how can you plug into the process? I see many people, actually every one of our Surface Transportation Technical Committee and Regional Transportation Council meetings, they send around a sign-in sheet. So I always look to see who else I'm speaking to whenever we're talking in that meeting. And a lot of folks are there. But you really should know your STAC and RTC representatives. They are the ones making decisions at the regional level. If you are attending or watching some of those meetings or online, you can see what is the next funding initiative that it's coming up. So that you know what to be prepared for. The other thing I would say is submit project ideas as they arise. Do not wait for a call for projects. We have gotten away from doing a lot of big open calls. On my team, we have a continuous call. So we take meetings all the time with people who have a project of interest. We take the data and put it into a folder. This is where, sorry to all the engineers in the room, I'm not one. Our director is an engineer and he names things really interesting names. So this is the folder list because we put it in a folder. So we put your project in a folder. It's essentially our inventory of all the project requests. And when we are ready to start doing project selection, we go into that folder and start reviewing the projects. They go through all the technical review at that point. So don't wait for us. Come and talk to us whenever you're ready. Whenever the mobility plan folks are asking for people to engage with them, you should really do that, because if you are not in the plan, you cannot implement projects in our region. A lot of times it just sounds so far away. 2050 is a long time away. It'll be here before we know it, but right now it's a long ways away and it's hard to even conceptualize what you need to be talking to with them. But if you have a project in your agency or your client does, they really need to be talking to us to make sure that it's properly represented there. And then be ready to apply when funding programs are announced. I think I might just have one or two more. Points to remember, we are focused on finding solutions to transportation problems in general. When you're talking to us, we know you have a specific need, but it's helpful if you can translate how you think that helps others beyond just the immediate environment there. We are looking to fund the long range plan, which is why we've really stopped doing open calls. When we do a big open call, what we find is people submit to us their priorities and we try to fit them into the plan and see how well they mesh. But really, we've said, wait, we already set up the plan. Let's reach into the plan and find the next subset of projects and go fund those. So that's really where we've been focusing our efforts. Whenever you're asking for money, talk to us about what you can bring to the table. And then for those of you who are fortunate enough to get regional toll revenue dollars, we have a lot of completed projects that have not been closed out. So we're really pushing folks to get that done. With that, I think that might be it. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Nancy, I see Nancy. Yes, so she asked me about the signal funding that may be upcoming. So we have several increments of money. Natalie Bedker on our staff, her team has gone out and surveyed every signal in the region to determine what is needed to get them up to standard. And so they then prioritized all those needs and they are going out and again, they have already identified in the survey what the need is and they're going out to fund them in priority order. So we funded 2 or 3 years ago, about $30 million, I believe, she initially came to us with 75 or $100 million requests, and we said we can't do that all at once. So we did the first chunk a few years ago. They're just now starting to implement those. She has asked us for a new chunk of money that I don't know if it's gone to the RTC yet or it's going soon. So that will open up. But again, it's not going to be an open call. It's really them looking at that survey they've already done and picking up the next priority list of projects out of it. So that is happening imminently. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to the RTC this month or next month. Other questions?
Meeting, it looked like the total dollars in the UTP are dropping year over year. So it looks like our resources are dwindling. A lot of the consultants here, have a lack of work from TxDOT. Just wanted to hear your take on if that's being addressed in any way.
So the question, if you couldn't hear, it didn't sound like that microphone's on to me. Could y'all hear it? No, okay. So the Unified Transportation Program is the state's funding document where they identify how much money we have collectively to spend. The revenues are coming down. Now, I say that with a little bit of a caveat that we had a record-breaking UTP like 2 years ago. It went from being in the roughly 100, maybe 90, 80 to 90 billion dollars up to like 100 or 112. It was a really big one. And so we're seeing that come down. Usually there are funding categories that the districts select within our region that TxDOT Austin selects at the commission level and that we in the region select with TxDOT. So you can imagine that the one that the MPOs select with the state get a little less money than the others. So that one we've usually been getting about 200 or 300 million more a year. And this year we thought it was going to be negative, and I think we ended up getting 60. So it is much lower. So we're not funding anything new unless we are taking money away from other projects. So we're basically looking at the 10-year spread and saying, hey, we need to make sure year 1 and year 2 projects are fully funded. If there's not enough money to do that, then we're taking money from year 9 and 10 and moving it up. But we keep the 9 and 10s on our list because we want to come back and refund them when we get additional increments of funding. So one of the things we've been talking about internally is when these things happen, people often come to us and ask them to solve the problem, and we're pretty good at doing that. But it actually keeps, what we're talking about is maybe that keeps the problem from being solved, really. So we come up with an innovative solution that solves the immediate need, but it's not funding the full need. And so we're sort of at a crossroads where we can only do so many of those. And so there may be a little bit of pain for a little while. Now, TxDOT had reduced their engineering and right-of-way budgets a few years ago. We are starting to see that lighten up as well or improve as well. So TxDOT, I think, tend to go in cycles, really a lot of money, and then, oh, we kind of overdid it, so now we have none, and then we have a lot. And so I've watched that happen over the years. So we often have funded in the gaps when we can. I feel like we're getting back into the, like coming out of the trough and kind of coming back up to level. So hopefully y'all start to see that too, because it helps us get our projects ready. Good. All right. Thank you.